She stood on the porch of her own home, 8 months pregnant, and her key would not turn. Inside, she could hear her husband laughing with another woman. Through the window, she watched his mistress sitting in her spot on the sofa, wearing her engagement ring. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her belongings were boxed up by the curb, and the man she had loved for 5 years looked at her like she was garbage waiting to be collected. He told her she was nothing, that she brought nothing to their marriage, that their daughter would have his name and his money while she got supervised visitation and $30,000 a year. He was a powerful CEO. She was just a quiet wife with no family, no connections, no power, or so he thought. What Grant Holloway did not know was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life, because the woman he was throwing away, like yesterday's trash, was not who she claimed to be. Her real name was Margot Elizabeth Ellison Whitmore. Her father was a federal prosecutor who brought down 3 governors. Her mother was a state Supreme Court justice. And her uncle was the family court judge that Grant's own lawyers had specifically requested for the divorce. She had hidden her identity for 5 years, hoping her husband would love her for herself. He failed. And now, in front of everyone he was trying to impress, she was about to remind him why the Whitmores never lose. This is the story of a woman who was told she was worthless by the man who should have protected her, and how she rose from the ashes to destroy everything he built. Lesson and value. This story carries a powerful message. Your worth is never defined by how someone treats you. It is defined by who you choose to become when they try to break you. If you have ever been underestimated, dismissed, or made to feel small by someone who should have loved you, this story is for you. It is a reminder that the people who try to make you invisible often cannot see their own blindness. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply becoming the person they never believed you could be. The front door would not open. Margot stood on the porch of her own home, 8 months pregnant, her key refusing to turn in the lock. The September wind caught her hair, leaves scattered across the welcome mat that still said the Holloways in cheerful script. Inside, she could hear laughter. A woman's laughter, high and musical and wrong. And then Grant's voice, clear through the window. She's probably crying at her mother's by now. The movers already took her things to storage. Pathetic, really. 5 years of marriage, and she still doesn't understand how the world works. Margot's hand fell away from the door handle. The sonogram photos from her appointment were still warm in her purse. Baby girl, the technician had said. Perfectly healthy. She tried the key again. It scraped uselessly against new brass. Through the living room window, she could see them. Grant, still in his navy suit from the office. A woman with auburn hair sitting on Margot's cream-colored sofa. Sitting in Margot's spot. The spot where she had curled up every evening for 5 years. The woman leaned into Grant's shoulder. He kissed her forehead. Margot's phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen with numb fingers. 12 missed calls from numbers she did not recognize. A single text from Grant. My lawyer will be in touch. Don't make this difficult. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. This could not be real. She had left for a doctor's appointment 2 hours ago. 2 hours. They had eaten breakfast together. He had kissed her cheek. He had asked her to pick up his dry cleaning on the way home. The dry cleaning was still in her car. She pressed her palm against the door, against the house she had decorated room by room, the nursery she had spent 3 months designing. Her grandmother's china was in that kitchen. Her mother's pearls were in the bedroom safe. Everything she owned was behind this door that would not open. The woman inside laughed again. Margot walked around to the side of the house. Her feet moved without her permission. Past the hydrangeas she had planted their first spring. Past the broken fence post Grant had promised to fix for 3 years. Through the kitchen window, she could see boxes stacked by the garage door. Her boxes, her books, her clothes. The baby supplies she had organized so carefully, all of it piled like garbage, waiting for collection. A car horn honked in the driveway. She turned to see a moving truck pulling away. The driver waved at her cheerfully, as if he had not just hauled away her entire life. Her legs gave out. She sat down on the wet grass in her good maternity dress. The one Grant had said made her look almost like her old self. The baby kicked hard against her ribs. The front door opened. Grant stepped onto the porch with the woman behind him. She was younger than Margot, 29, maybe 30. Wearing a silk blouse Margot recognized from the Nordstrom catalog she had browsed last week. Grant looked at his wife sitting in the grass like she was a stain on his lawn. "Margot, you're still here." He checked his watch. "I had Rebecca send the papers hours ago." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Don't make a scene." He walked down the porch steps, hands in his pockets. "The neighbors are already curious enough. That pregnancy brain of yours must be worse than I thought." The woman followed him, picking her way across the lawn in heels that sank into the soft earth. She was wearing Margot's engagement ring. Margot could see it glinting on her finger, resized to fit. "Grant," Margot's voice came out as a whisper. "What is happening?" "What's happening is, I'm moving on." He crouched down to her level, and his cologne washed over her. The same cologne she had bought him for Christmas. "I'm keeping the house. You can have the Honda. I think that's more than fair, considering you brought nothing to this marriage." "Nothing." She repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. "You were a hostess at a restaurant when we met, Margot. I turned you into something. I gave you this life." He gestured at the house behind him. "And now I'm taking it back." The woman stepped closer. Her smile was almost sympathetic. Almost. "Grant, baby, she's shaking." The woman's voice dripped with false concern. "Maybe offer her a glass of water before she goes." Grant laughed. "She can get her own water. She's going to have to learn how." Margot pushed herself up from the grass. Her hands were muddy. Her dress was ruined. Her baby kicked again, frantic and confused by the adrenaline flooding through her mother's blood. "My bank accounts," she said. "My credit cards. Frozen. All of it." Grant tilted his head, studying her like a problem he had already solved. "You didn't think I'd let you drain accounts during the divorce? I'm not stupid, Margot. I've been planning this for 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of I love you and can't wait to meet our daughter, and you look beautiful today." "You married me," she said. "You said you wanted a family. I married you because you were convenient." He straightened up, brushing grass from his expensive slacks. "Pretty enough, quiet enough, and grateful enough. But Sloane here actually understands business. She's VP of marketing at my company. Did you know that? My wife never even learned what my company does." Sloane. The woman had a name. Sloane. Margot looked at her. Really looked. High cheekbones, perfect makeup, confidence in every line of her body. "How long?" Margot asked. Sloane glanced at Grant. He shrugged. "Long enough," he said. "Doesn't matter." It mattered. It mattered so much that Margot thought she might shatter from the weight of it. Grant pulled out his phone. "I have a dinner reservation in an hour. This conversation is over. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow with a settlement offer. I'm being generous. $30,000 a year in child support, visitation rights, nothing more." "The baby," Margot said. "Our daughter. She'll have my name and my money. You'll have visitation." He was already walking back toward the house. "Be grateful I'm being generous." Sloane followed him. At the door, she paused. "Good luck, Margot. Truly." The door closed. Margot stood alone in her own front yard, surrounded by hydrangeas she had planted with her own hands. The sun was setting. The sprinklers would come on soon. She had programmed them herself. She did not cry. She was beyond crying. She was somewhere past tears in a cold and hollow place she had never been before. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Grant. "The garage code has been changed too. Don't bother trying." She walked to her car. The Honda he had so graciously sobbed allowed her to keep. Her hands found the keys in her purse, next to the sonogram. next to her wallet with $47 inside. $47? That was what her life had been reduced to. 5 years of marriage, one baby growing inside her, and $47. She sat in the driver's seat for a long time. The sprinklers came on. Water streamed down her windshield like tears she could not shed. Inside her purse, beneath the sonogram and the wallet and the grocery list she had made that morning, there was a business card. She had kept it hidden for 5 years, tucked into a zippered pocket she never used. A name in elegant script. Judge Harrison Whitmore, Family Court Division. Uncle. Margot did not reach for it. Not yet. She was not ready to explain how thoroughly she had been fooled, how completely she had given herself to a man who saw her as furniture. She started the car. She drove. She did not know where she was going until she saw the neon sign of a motel glowing against the darkening sky. $39 a night. She could afford it. Barely. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and old cigarettes. The bedspread was brown. The television was bolted to the wall. Through the thin curtains, she could see the highway, cars rushing past, full of people going somewhere that mattered. Margot sat on the edge of the bed. Her baby kicked. She checked her phone one more time. No messages except the ones from Grant. No concerned friends. No worried family. She had isolated herself so thoroughly during this marriage that there was no one left to notice she was drowning. That had been part of his plan too. She could see it now. The way he had encouraged her to quit her job, the way he had complained about her friends, about her family, about anyone who might have warned her. 5 years. 5 years of her life, given to a man who had been counting down the days until he could throw her away. Margot looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Smudged mascara, muddy dress, tangled hair, 8 months pregnant with a baby she would have to raise alone. She did not recognize the woman staring back at her, but somewhere underneath the shock and the grief, something else was stirring. Something that felt like the first spark of a fire that had been cold for too long. Grant thought she was nothing. He thought she had no one. He thought he had won. He had no idea who she really was. The motel room was silent except for the hum of the highway. Margot sat on the bed, still in her ruined dress, counting the money in her wallet. $47. She had already paid $39 for the room. That left $8 for food, for gas, for everything. She had been wealthy for 5 years. She had forgotten how to count pennies, but she had not forgotten. Not really. Before Grant, she had been someone else entirely. Someone she had buried so deep that even her husband never suspected. Her phone screen glowed in the darkness. Midnight. She should sleep. The baby needed rest, even if she could not. She pulled the business card from her purse instead. Judge Harrison Whitmore, Family Court Division. The ink was faded from years of being hidden. The corners were soft from being touched. Her uncle, her mother's brother, the man who had taught her to ride a bicycle when she was 6 years old. Margot was not Margot Ellison, nobody from nowhere. She was Margot Ellison Whitmore, the only daughter of Conrad and Judith Whitmore. Her father had spent 30 years as a federal prosecutor. He had brought down 3 corrupt governors and a sitting senator. The newspapers used to call him the conscience of the courts. Her mother had been a state Supreme Court justice until she retired 2 years ago. She had written opinions that were studied in law schools across the country. Her uncle was the most respected family court judge in the state. High-profile divorces, custody battles that made headlines. His name was a synonym for fairness. The Whitmore family was not just wealthy. They were powerful. They were connected. They were the kind of people who shaped the law itself. And Margot had hidden all of it from Grant. Why? She knew why. She had known since the moment she met him at that charity gala 6 years ago. He had approached her at the bar, confident and charming, and he had looked at her like she was something beautiful and simple, something he could possess. She had been wearing a borrowed dress, no jewelry, her hair in a plain ponytail. He had assumed she was working the event, not attending it. She did not correct him. For once in her life, someone was looking at her without calculation, without wondering what the Whitmore connection could do for them, without asking about her father's famous cases or her mother's judicial philosophy. Grant saw her, just her, a woman at a bar with a tired smile. "Let me get you a drink," he had said. "You look like you need one." She should have known then. He only valued her when he thought she was beneath him. But she had been so tired. Tired of being the Whitmore daughter. Tired of wondering if anyone would ever love her for herself. So she had lied. By omission at first, then more directly. She told him her parents were retired school teachers, that she had no siblings, that she was exactly what she appeared to be, a former restaurant hostess with no connections and no ambitions. He had proposed 3 months later. She had accepted. She had convinced herself that love could be built on lies. She was wrong. Margot looked at her reflection in the dark television screen. The woman who stared back at her was a fool. A fool who had traded her family's power for a man who never deserved her. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Are you sure about this man, Margot? He seems very interested in what you can do for him." She had defended Grant. She had cut ties with her family to prove her loyalty to him. She had not spoken to her mother in 3 years. Now she was sitting in a $39 motel room with $47 to her name. Now. $8. Her thumb hovered over her mother's number. The contact was still there, never deleted, just ignored. She could end this right now. One call. The Whitmore legal machine would destroy Grant before breakfast. His company would be investigated. His assets would be frozen. His mistress would find herself answering very uncomfortable questions from very powerful people. Margot put the phone down, picked it up, put it down, picked it up. The screen glowed in the darkness, like a question she was not ready to answer. Pride. That was what stopped her. Pride and shame. She had been so certain that Grant was different, that she had finally found someone who loved her for herself. To admit she was wrong meant admitting her family had been right all along. A knock on the motel door made her jump. She froze. Grant. It had to be Grant. He had tracked her phone, found her, come to finish what he started. Another knock, louder. "Margot, open the door. I know you're in there." Not Grant. A woman's voice. Familiar. Margot opened the door. Piper Donovan stood in the flickering light of the motel hallway. 33 years old. Sharp bob haircut. Designer bag that cost more than this motel room did per month. Margot's best friend from law school. Former best friend. They had not spoken since Margot's wedding, when Piper had told her she was making a mistake. "Your mother called me," Piper said. She pushed past Margot into the room. "Good Lord, this place is depressing. Couldn't you at least have found a Holiday Inn?" "How did you find me?" "Your mother has resources." Piper sat on the edge of the bed, surveying the room with barely concealed horror. "She's known about Grant for 2 years, Margot. They all have. They've been waiting for you to be ready." The words did not make sense. "What do you mean, known about him?" Piper reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Thick, heavy. "Your mother hired a private investigator. Grant's affair with that Sloan woman started 3 months into your marriage. He's been hiding assets, cooking books at his company, setting you up to take the fall for years." She handed Margot the folder. "They wanted to tell you. Your uncle almost intervened a dozen times, but your mother stopped him." "Why?" "Because she said you needed to see it yourself. She said you would not believe anyone else." Piper's voice softened. Was she right? Margot opened the folder. Photographs, bank statements, emails, a complete record of Grant's betrayal, laid out in damning detail. Sloan in Grant's office. Sloan at hotels. Sloan at the house Margot had been locked out of. Taken while Margot was visiting her obstetrician. Transactions to offshore accounts. Shell companies with Sloan's name on the paperwork. Pension funds from Grant's employees being siphoned into private investments that would never be repaid. Her hands were shaking. He married you specifically because he thought you were poor and controllable, Piper said. He bragged about it to his CFO. We have it on recording. The room was spinning. Margot lowered herself onto the bed, the folder clutched against her chest. My whole marriage, her voice cracked. Everything was a lie. Yes. Piper did not soften the truth. She never had. But you did not come to this marriage with nothing, Margot. You came with a family that loves you. You came with connections that could bury him. And you came with me. Margot looked at her friend. I said terrible things to you at my wedding. You did. You told me he was wrong for me. I did. I didn't listen. You didn't. Piper reached over and took her hand. But I'm here now, and so is your family. The only question is what you want to do about it. Margot looked down at the folder, at the evidence of 5 years of lies. I want him to hurt, she whispered. I want him to know what this feels like. Piper smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then we do this the Whitmore way. We let him destroy himself in public. And when he's on his knees, that's when the judge reads your name. The baby kicked. Margot placed her hand on her belly. A daughter. Grant's daughter. But more importantly, a Whitmore. Ready for what? Margot asked. Piper's eyes gleamed. To burn it all down. The Whitmores don't lose. And you're about to remember why. The motel room felt smaller now. Piper had brought coffee from the gas station across the street. Decaf for the baby. Margot held the cup without drinking, letting the warmth seep into her cold hands. Start from the beginning, Margot said. Tell me everything. Piper opened the folder on the bed between them. Documents spread like a road map of destruction. Your mother hired the investigator 14 months after your wedding. She had suspicions before that, but she wanted to be certain. Piper pulled out a photograph. Grant and Sloane at a restaurant, heads bent close together. This is from your first anniversary. You were at home preparing a surprise dinner. He told you he had a business meeting. Margot remembered that night. The candles, the champagne she could not drink because she was trying to get pregnant. The way he had come home late and told her the meeting had run long. She had believed every word. The affair was already serious by then, Piper continued. But it gets worse. Grant never intended for your marriage to last. He wanted a quiet, controllable wife to improve his image with investors. Old money prefers family men. He said that. He wrote it in an email to his CFO, and I quote, "The Ellison girl is perfect. No family connections that matter. No career ambitions. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her when the time comes." The words landed like physical blows. Margot set down her coffee before she dropped it. He picked me because I seemed weak. He picked you because he thought you were weak. There's a difference. Piper flipped through more documents. But his plan started falling apart when you got pregnant. He wasn't expecting that. The timeline shifted. He wanted me to get an abortion. Margot's voice was flat. He said it wasn't the right time, that we should wait. Because a baby complicates the divorce. Child support, custody, public perception. Piper shook her head. When you refused, he accelerated everything. The lockout today was supposed to happen next month. You forced his hand by keeping the pregnancy. Margot's hand moved to her belly. Her daughter had saved her, in a way, by existing, by being loved. What about the company? She asked. The financial fraud. That's where it gets really interesting. Piper pulled out a thick stack of financial documents. Grant's company, Holloway Enterprises, looks successful on paper, but he's been cooking the books for years. Fake contracts, inflated revenues. He's been siphoning money from the employee pension fund into offshore accounts. That's illegal. Very illegal. SEC violation territory. And guess whose name is on those offshore accounts? Sloane? Sloane Prescott, VP of Marketing. She's either complicit or being set up as a fall guy. Maybe both. Piper leaned back against the headboard. Here's the beautiful part. Grant thinks he's protected because he married someone with no connections. He thinks he can blame the financial problems on the divorce, claim you were somehow involved, and walk away clean. But I wasn't involved in anything. We know that. But he was planning to forge documents. We have evidence that he's been building a case against you for months. Fake signatures, doctored emails, everything he would need to destroy your credibility if you ever tried to fight back. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. Margot had not just been cheated on. She had been systematically prepared for destruction. "Why would anyone do this?" she whispered. "I loved him. I gave him everything." Because people like Grant don't understand love. They understand transactions. Piper's voice softened. "You were an asset to him, and now he's trying to liquidate you before you become a liability." Margot stood up from the bed. The room was too small. The walls were too close. She needed to move, to breathe, to process what she was hearing. She walked into the tiny bathroom and turned on the faucet. The water was lukewarm and smelled like chlorine. She splashed it on her face, watching it run down the stained porcelain. The files were still spread on the bed when she came back. Evidence of a life she thought she knew, a marriage she thought was real. She had given up so much for Grant, her career, her family, her sense of self. And all along, he had been planning to throw her away like yesterday's garbage. "I should have listened to you," Margot said. "At the wedding, you tried to warn me. We all tried to warn you. But you were in love, and love makes people blind." Piper gathered the documents back into the folder. "The question now is what you're going to do with your eyes open." Margot sat down on the edge of the bathtub. The baby was active tonight, pushing against her ribs like she wanted to escape. "What are my options?" Option 1, we go nuclear. Your family activates every connection they have. Grant's company is investigated tomorrow. His assets are frozen by next week. He's in handcuffs by the end of the month. What's option 2? We wait. We let him think he's won. He files for divorce, demands custody, puts on his public show. And then, at the final hearing, we reveal everything. His fraud, your identity. The whole house of cards collapses in open court in front of everyone he's been trying to impress. Margot considered both paths. The first was faster, more satisfying in the short term. But the second was complete, total. The kind of destruction that would echo for years. "He humiliated me today," she said slowly. "On my own porch, in front of his mistress. He told me I was nothing. I know. I want him to feel that. I want him to stand in a courtroom and watch everything he built come apart. I want him to understand what it feels like to lose everything." Piper smiled. "Then we do this right. We play the long game." Margot nodded. The decision settled into her bones like it belonged there. What do I need to do? First, you get out to this motel. Your family has a townhouse on the east side, private, secure. No one will know you're there." Piper stood up and extended her hand. "Second, you let me prepare your legal case. I've been waiting for this for 3 years. You've been practicing family law. I've been practicing destroying arrogant men in family court. There's a difference." Piper pulled Margot to her feet. "And third, you call your mother. She's been waiting by the phone since we tracked your credit card to this motel. She's going to say, 'I told you so.' She's going to say she loves you. Then she's going to say, 'I told you so.'" Piper gathered her bag. "The Whitmores don't lose, Margot. And you're about to remember why." They left the motel together. Piper's BMW was parked outside, engine already running. Margot looked back at the room where she had spent the worst night of her life. The brown bedspread, the bolted television, the stained curtains. She would never forget this place. It would remind her, forever, of what Grant had tried to make her. Small, scared, alone. Never again. 2 weeks passed. Margot stayed in the Whitmore townhouse, growing stronger by the day. Piper brought files and strategy sessions and takeout from restaurants Margot used to love, Her body recovered from the shock of that terrible night, her mind sharpened with purpose. Grant, meanwhile, was celebrating. The invitation arrived at the townhouse by accident. Grant's assistant had used an old mailing list that still included Margot's name, Holloway Enterprises Gala, celebrating 5 years of excellence. 5 years, their entire marriage. He was throwing a party. "You cannot possibly be thinking about going," Piper said, watching Margot read the invitation. "I want to see him." Margot set down the heavy cardstock. "I want to see him pretending everything is fine. It's a terrible idea. You're 8 months pregnant. He'll cause a scene. Or I will." Margot smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I need to see who he is when he thinks no one is watching." Piper did not argue further. She knew that look in Margot's eyes. The gala was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, a string quartet playing in the corner. Everything Grant loved about himself, made tangible. Margot arrived alone. She wore black, the only color that felt appropriate for bearing a marriage. The dress was simple, expensive, the kind of thing she would have worn 5 years ago before she started dressing to please a man who never noticed. She stood outside the ballroom windows, hidden in the shadows of the garden. Rain had started to fall, soft and steady. Through the glass, she could see Grant at the center of the room. Navy suit, perfect smile, shaking hands and accepting congratulations like he deserved them. Sloane was beside him. She was wearing Margot's engagement ring again, and a dress that looked suspiciously like one Margot had admired in a store 6 months ago. Grant approached the microphone at the front of the room. The crowd quieted. 5 years ago, I started this company with nothing but a dream and a willingness to work harder than anyone else. His voice carried through the speakers, out into the garden where Margot stood watching. Tonight, we celebrate everything we've built together. The partnerships, the growth, the future. Applause. Grant raised his champagne glass. Sometimes in business and in life, we have to cut dead weight. We have to make difficult choices about what serves us and what holds us back. I'm proud to say that this company has never been afraid to do what needs to be done. He did not mention Margot by name. He did not have to. Everyone in that room knew what he meant. Sloane pressed against his side, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. The rain grew heavier. Margot stood in it, watching, counting. 17 minutes. She stood there for 17 minutes, counting every drop of rain that hit her face. Every time he touched Sloane's waist, where he used to touch hers. Every laugh, every toast. Her heart should have been breaking. Instead, it was hardening into something cold and useful. A door opened behind her. "Mrs. Holloway?" She turned. A man in his mid-40s, graying at the temples, nervous energy in every line of his body. She recognized him from company events. Derek Morrison, Grant's CFO. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "If Grant sees you, are you going to tell him?" Derek hesitated. His eyes darted toward the ballroom, then back to her. "I didn't know," he said. "About the divorce, I mean. Not until it was done. He just told us you left, that you couldn't handle the pressure of being a CEO's wife." Margot said nothing. She just looked at him. Derek's composure cracked. "The books, the offshore accounts. I know about them too. I've known for 2 years." His voice dropped to a whisper. I have a family, kids in college. I couldn't afford to." "To be brave?" He flinched. Margot stepped closer. The rain had soaked through her dress, but she did not feel cold anymore. "I'm not asking you to choose, Derek. Not tonight." Her voice was calm, steady, the voice of a woman who had learned patience from a family of judges and prosecutors. "But when the time comes, I want you to remember this moment. The moment you could have been brave, but weren't." Derek stared at her. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, self-preservation versus conscience. She did not wait for him to choose. She turned and walked toward the ballroom doors. "Mrs. Holloway, wait, you can't just—" But she was already inside. The warmth hit her first, then the music, then the shocked silence as 300 people turned to stare at the pregnant woman in the soaking wet dress. Grant's face went white, then red. What the hell are you doing here? Margot walked toward him, leaving wet footprints on the pristine carpet. Guests parted like the Red Sea, their champagne glasses suspended mid-sip. I came to congratulate you. Her voice carried through the silent room. On everything. Sloane stepped forward, her face twisted with barely concealed alarm. Security, get this woman out of here. Two men in black suits approached from the corners of the room. Margot did not move. I'm 8 months pregnant with his child, she said calmly. You want the photos of you dragging a pregnant woman out of a charity event? The security guard stopped. Grant's jaw tightened. He grabbed Margot's arm, pulling her toward the door. You're embarrassing yourself, he hissed. This is exactly why I'm getting full custody. You're unstable. Let go of me. He did not let go. His fingers dug into her arm hard enough to bruise. You think anyone here cares about you? His voice was low, vicious. You think showing up in a wet dress is going to make me look bad? It only makes you look crazy. Margot leaned closer, close enough that only he could hear. You're right. Tonight doesn't make you look bad, she smiled. But tomorrow will. And next week, and next month. By the time I'm done, everyone in this room will know exactly what kind of man you are. She pulled her arm free and walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused. Enjoy your party, Grant. It's the last one you'll ever throw. Outside, the rain had stopped. A black car was waiting at the curb. The back door opened. Judith Whitmore sat in the leather seat, silver hair perfect, pearls glowing against her black dress. Margot's mother, former state Supreme Court Justice, the most formidable woman she had ever known. Get in, darling. Her voice was warm and sharp at the same time, the way it always had been. It's time to stop playing games. Margot got in. The Whitmore estate sat on 12 acres of old money silence. Oak trees lined the drive. The house itself was Georgian brick, built by Margot's great-grandfather in 1912. She had not been here in 5 years. The car pulled up to the front steps. Judith did not speak during the drive. She simply sat beside her daughter, one manicured hand resting on Margot's knee. Inside, the house smelled the same. Lemon polish, old books, the faint ghost of her grandmother's perfume. Conrad Whitmore waited in the study. 65 years old, silver hair, the kind of quiet authority that filled a room without making a sound. He stood when Margot entered. Dad? Margot. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Conrad crossed the room and wrapped his daughter in his arms. She had forgotten how safe this felt. She had spent so long running from her family name that she had forgotten what it meant to belong somewhere. He never deserved you. Conrad's voice was rough with emotion. We knew that the week after you met him. Then why didn't you say something? Because you needed to learn what love shouldn't look like. He stepped back, holding her at arm's length. Unfortunately, you learned it too well. The study door opened again. Uncle Harrison entered, still in his judicial robes. He must have come straight from the courthouse. Margot. He embraced her briefly. You look terrible. Thanks, Uncle Harry. You're welcome. He sat down in his customary chair by the fireplace. I've recused myself from your divorce 3 times now. Grant's attorneys keep requesting me specifically because they think I'll be lenient. Old money protecting old money. Judith poured herself a scotch. What they don't know is that Whitmore isn't just old money. It's old justice. Margot walked slowly through the room, touching objects she had not seen in years. Her grandmother's portrait above the mantel. The first debate trophy she had won at 14. A framed letter on the wall, the paper yellowed with age. She stopped in front of it. Dear Margot, the letter read, never let them make you small. You were born to take up space in this world. Use every inch of it. With admiration, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She had written to Justice Ginsburg for a school project when she was 12. The response had arrived 2 weeks later. Her mother had framed it. Margot had forgotten it existed. Why didn't I listen to you? She said quietly. Judith came to stand beside her. Because you were young, because you wanted something none of us could give you. What was that? To be ordinary. Judith's voice was gentle. To be loved without complication, without expectation. She sighed. The Whitmore name is heavy, Margot. I never blamed you for wanting to set it down. But I didn't set it down. I just hid it. Margot turned to face her family. And now Grant is going to pay for what he did to me. And everyone will say it's because of my family connections. They'll say I didn't earn this. Harrison shook his head. Grant will pay for what he did because he's a criminal. The fraud, the embezzlement, the betrayal. Those are his choices, not yours. And we're not going to win this for you, Conrad added. You're going to win it yourself. We're just going to make sure the playing field is fair. Piper entered the study carrying another folder. The final hearing is set for 2 weeks from Friday. Grant's team has filed for emergency custody. They're claiming you're mentally unstable and financially incapable. I know, I saw the filing. They're also claiming you've been estranged from your family for years, so you have no support system. Piper smiled thinly. That's going to be fun to disprove. The Whitmores gathered around the study table. Judith, Conrad, Harrison, Piper, Margot stood at the head looking at the people who had been waiting for 5 years for her to come home. Here's the plan, Piper said. You're going to appear at the hearing without visible legal representation. Pro C. Grant's team will think you've given up. They'll get cocky. And then, at the right moment, you reveal who you are. The judge reads your full legal name into the record, and Grant finally understands that he married into one of the most powerful families in the state without knowing it. Harrison leaned forward. The law is clear. His fraud has endangered pension funds that include judicial employees. This isn't just personal, Margot. This is a matter of public interest. What about custody? Margot asked. What about my daughter? Full custody, Judith said firmly. No visitation. He's already demonstrated that he's willing to use a child as leverage. We won't give him that chance. Margot looked at each of them in turn. Her mother, steel and silk. Her father, quiet power. Her uncle, the weight of the law. Her best friend, sharp as a blade. For 5 years, she had tried to build a life without them. For 5 years, she had failed. Okay, she said, we do it your way, the Whitmore way. Later, alone in her childhood bedroom, Margot opened a music box she had not touched since she was 15. The mechanism was stiff, but it still played. A Brahms lullaby, tinny and sweet. She cried, not from sadness, from relief, from the overwhelming sensation of finally coming home. Grant's counterattack came 3 days later. Margot woke to Piper pounding on her bedroom door. Get up, we have a problem. The headline was on every local news site. CEO's estranged wife implicated in financial scandal. The story cited unnamed sources claiming that Margot had been involved in her husband's business dealings, that she had signed documents authorizing questionable transactions, that she had a history of mental illness that rendered her an unfit mother. All of it was lies. All of it would take months to disprove. Grant had made the first move. The media requests started immediately. Reporters camped outside the Whitmore estate. Their cameras pointed at the iron gates like they could see through them. One of them cornered Margot outside a grocery store 2 days later. She had slipped out for air, desperate to feel normal for even an hour. Mrs. Holloway, is it true you have a history of mental illness? The camera was 3 feet from her face, the microphone closer. Mrs. Holloway, did you authorize the offshore transactions? Mrs. Holloway, do you have a statement about the custody proceedings? She froze. The baby kicked, her heart hammered against her ribs. Leave her alone. Piper appeared from nowhere, placing herself between Margot and the cameras. My client has no comment at this time. Client, not friend. They were playing roles now. Back at the estate, Margot sat in the study, staring at the stack of newspaper articles Piper had collected. Every one of them painted her as unstable, manipulative, dangerous. He's winning, she said. He's making noise. Piper sat across from her. There's a difference. Is there? Look at this. Margot held up one of the articles. His mother gave a statement, Evelyn Holloway. She called me unsuitable. Evelyn Holloway is a social climber who would sell her own son for a seat at the right dinner party. Her opinion doesn't matter, but it did matter. Every word of it mattered. Because somewhere out there, a judge was reading these articles. A custody evaluator was forming opinions. The story of Margot's life was being written by people who had never met her. Her phone rang. Grant. She answered before she could stop herself. I know you're planning something. His voice was the same smooth poison it had always been. Whatever family connection you think you have, it won't matter. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Margot. Someone's been asking questions about my company. If you think you can outspin me in court, you're delusional. He did not know about the Whitmores. He just knew something was wrong. Someone was digging. It made him nervous enough to call. Good. Here's my final offer, Grant continued. Walk away now. You get $30,000 a year in child support. Never speak to the press, never contact me, you disappear. Margot gripped the phone so hard her knuckles went white. You want me to disappear? Her voice was steady, even as her hands shook. Grant, I've been invisible our entire marriage. The difference now is I've chosen to become visible, and you're not going to like what you see. She hung up. The phone rang again immediately. She turned it off. That night, she could not sleep. She walked through the Whitmore house in the dark, touching walls she had known since childhood. The grandfather clock in the hallway, the squeaky floorboard outside her parents' bedroom, the window seat where she used to read on rainy afternoons. At 2 a.m, she found herself in her old closet, surrounded by boxes of things she had left behind. Photos from law school, her debate club trophies, a box of letters from friends she had lost touch with. She emptied her purse onto the floor, sorted the contents by category, receipts by date, coins by denomination. $4.37. That was how much change she had. It felt like control. It felt like the last thing she could hold on to. The contractions started at 3:15. Sharp. Brutgeout. Too soon. Margot called for help, but the house was asleep. She managed to get herself down the stairs, clutching the railing, breathing through each wave of pain. By the time Judith found her, she was on the floor of the foyer, phone in hand, trying to dial 911. The ambulance came. The hospital was bright and cold and full of strangers asking questions. False labor. The baby was fine. Margot was not. She lay in the hospital bed, alone. She had refused to let her family stay. She needed to think, needed to feel what she was feeling without an audience. What if she could not do this? What if Grant won? What if her daughter grew up with him as the example of what a man should be? The settlement papers were in her purse. She had been carrying them for 2 weeks, unable to sign them, unable to throw them away. She pulled them out now. $30,000 a year. Supervised visitation. A non-disclosure agreement that would silence her forever. She could end this, sign the papers, accept defeat, walk away with whatever scraps Grant deigned to give her. Her thumb hovered over Grant's number in her phone. One call, one surrender. It would all be over. The cursor blinked on the screen. Blinked, blinked. A knock at the door. Mrs. Holloway? A nurse entered. There's a woman here. Says she's your mother. Judith walked in. She did not say a word. She simply sat down on the edge of the hospital bed and wrapped her arms around her daughter. For an hour, they stayed like that, silent, breathing together. When Margot woke up, the settlement papers were gone. Judith had taken them. You don't surrender, darling. Her mother's voice was soft but firm. You regroup. 1 week before the final divorce hearing. The evidence was assembled. The witnesses were prepared. Everything was in place. Derek Morrison had agreed to testify. Grant had fired him the day after the gala, claiming disloyalty to the company. Derek had responded by copying every financial document he could access and delivering them to Piper's office in a cardboard box. I should have done this years ago, he told Margot when they'd met. I was a coward. I'm sorry. You're doing it now. That's what matters. The SEC investigation had been quietly opened based on anonymous tips. Grant did not know yet. He would find out at the worst possible moment. And Sloane Prescott had disappeared. She had not shown up at Grant's side in days. No public appearances, no social media posts. Grant's assistant told reporters she was on a personal retreat. Margot knew better. The knock came at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. Margot opened the door, expecting Piper. Instead, she found Sloane standing on the porch, rain dripping from her designer coat. Can I come in? Margot stepped aside. Sloane looked different, smaller somehow. The confidence that had radiated from her at the gala was gone. In its place was something that looked uncomfortably like fear. I didn't know where else to go, Sloane said. She sat on the edge of a chair, clutching her bag like a lifeline. Grant he's changed. Changed how? He talks to me now, the way he used to talk to you. Sloane's voice cracked. Cold. Dismissive. Like I'm a problem to be solved. Margot felt no satisfaction. She had expected to. She had expected to feel triumph at seeing her replacement discover the same cruelty she had endured. Instead, she felt tired, sad. He promised me everything, Sloane continued. He said when the divorce was final, we would get married. He said I would be Mrs. Holloway. He said I would have everything you had. And now he's talking about liability, about cutting ties, about how my name is on accounts that could cause problems. Sloane looked up, mascara smudged under her eyes. I didn't know about the fraud. I swear I didn't know. He told me those accounts were for tax purposes. Were they? No. Sloane's laugh was bitter. I've been a fool. Just like... She stopped herself. Just like me, Margot finished. Sloane nodded miserably. Margot sat down across from her. This woman had worn her ring, sat in her house, slept with her husband. Every instinct screamed at her to be cruel. But cruelty was Grant's language, not hers. You have a choice, Margot said slowly. The same choice I had. Stay and hope he changes, or leave and change yourself. Why are you being kind to me? Sloane's voice was barely a whisper. I helped destroy your marriage. No, Grant destroyed our marriage. You were just another tool he used. Margot leaned forward. I refused to become as cruel as he made me feel. I refused to let him turn me into someone like him. Sloane was crying now. Ugly tears, the kind that ruined makeup and stained collars. She reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. His real books. Everything he's been hiding. Account numbers, transaction records. Proof that he's been planning to blame everything on you. She held it out with shaking hands. I'm sorry. For all of it. Margot took the drive. What are you going to do now? She asked. Leave. Go somewhere he can't find me. Sloane stood, wiping her eyes. Maybe therapy? Maybe bartending school? I don't know. Something different. At the door, she paused. He's going to lose, isn't he? Margot looked at the USB drive in her hand. The final piece of evidence. The nail in Grant Holloway's coffin. Yes, he's going to lose. Sloane nodded. Good. And she was gone. That night, Margot sat with her mother, reviewing the final strategy. Are you sure you want to do it this way? Judith asked. We could tell him privately. Give him a chance to settle. Margot shook her head. He had 5 years to see who I really was. He only saw what he wanted. Someone small, someone he could control. She looked at her mother steadily. I want him to learn, in public, that he never controlled anything. And after, when this is over, Margot placed her hand on her belly. Her daughter kicked in response. Then I become someone new, someone who doesn't need to hide. The final divorce hearing was held on a Friday morning in November. Courtroom 4B Family Court Division. The room smelled like old wood and floor polish. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Grant arrived first, flanked by a team of 4 attorneys in identical navy suits. Rebecca Marsh led the pack, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Behind them came a parade of boxes. 17 in total, documents, evidence, ammunition for the war they thought they had already won. Sloan was conspicuously absent. The gallery filled with spectators. Grant had made sure of it. His business associates, society friends, even a few journalists from the financial pages. He wanted witnesses to his victory. Margot arrived alone. She wore a simple black dress. No jewelry. Her hair pulled back from her face. 8.5 months pregnant now, her belly visible to everyone in the room. She carried a single folder. Grant's team exchanged glances as she took her seat at the plaintiff's table. No attorney, no support staff, just one woman and one folder. Grant leaned over to whisper to Rebecca Marsh. She smiled. He smiled. They thought they had won before the hearing even started. Judge Harrison Whitmore entered the courtroom. All rise. The room stood. The room sat. Harrison's face was neutral, professional. He gave no sign that the woman at the plaintiff's table was his niece, that he had taught her to ride a bicycle, that he had been waiting 3 years for this moment. This court is now in session. In the matter of Holloway versus Holloway, I understand both parties are prepared to proceed. The respondent is ready, Your Honor. Rebecca Marsh stood, buttoning her jacket. We have extensive documentation to present regarding Mrs. Holloway's unsuitability for custody and her complete lack of financial contribution to the marriage. Harrison turned to Margot. Mrs. Holloway, I see you're unrepresented today. Are you certain you wish to proceed without counsel? Margot stood. Her voice was steady. I'm representing myself, Your Honor. Proceed. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Grant laughed under his breath. Rebecca Marsh's smile widened. Very well, Harrison made a note. Let's proceed. The next 2 hours were a master class in destruction. Rebecca Marsh presented her case with surgical precision. Margot was painted as unstable, unemployed, dependent, a woman with no career, no family support, and no means of providing for a child. Grant's testimony was polished, rehearsed. I built everything we had, Your Honor. My wife contributed nothing financially to our marriage. I paid for the house, the cars, the lifestyle. Everything she had came from me. He turned to look at Margot, expecting tears. She was writing notes, calmly. I'm asking only for what's fair, Grant continued. Primary custody of our daughter and protection of my assets. Mrs. Holloway can have supervised visitation. That's more than reasonable, given the circumstances. Rebecca Marsh presented document after document. Bank statements showing Margot's lack of income. Medical records suggesting mental health concerns. Witness statements from Grant's employees, friends, and mother. All testifying to Margot's instability. Through it all, Margot sat silent, writing, waiting. Finally, Harrison turned to her. Mrs. Holloway, you've heard the respondent's case. Do you have anything to present in your defense? Margot stood. Your Honor, before I present my case, I need to disclose a relationship that may be relevant to these proceedings. The room quieted. Grant frowned. My full legal name is Margot Elizabeth Ellison Whitmore. Her voice carried clearly through the silent courtroom. You are my uncle. Complete silence. Grant's face went white. What? That's not possible. Rebecca Marsh turned to look at him. You didn't know. Of course I didn't know. She never... Grant stood, pointing at Margot. Your Honor, this is a conflict of interest. You need to recuse yourself immediately. Harrison's expression did not change. The court acknowledges this disclosure. Mrs. Whitmore, you understand I would typically recuse myself in such circumstances. I do, Your Honor. Margot's voice was calm. However, given that Mr. Holloway's counsel specifically requested you for this proceeding, 3 times, I believe any objection would be hypocritical. Grant's attorneys scrambled through their files. They had requested Harrison Whitmore. They had thought he would favor wealth, favor position, favor one of their own. Harrison looked at Grant. Mr. Holloway, you married into one of the most prominent legal families in this state without knowing it. That speaks to either remarkable deception on your wife's part or remarkable incuriosity on yours. He paused. Shall we proceed? Grant sank back into his chair. Margot opened her folder. Your Honor, I would like to submit the following evidence into the record. She handed a USB drive to the bailiff. This drive contains complete financial records from Holloway Enterprises, offshore accounts, falsified contracts, evidence of systematic embezzlement from the Employee Pension Fund. Grant shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. These documents were stolen. This is corporate espionage. These documents were provided voluntarily by a former employee with direct knowledge of the fraud. Margot did not look at Grant. Mr. Derek Morrison, who will be testifying via video connection in approximately 5 minutes. Rebecca Marsh leaned over to Grant. Her face had gone pale. Whatever he had told his legal team, it was not this. Harrison accepted the USB drive. The court will review this evidence. Bailiff, please set up the video connection. Derek Morrison's face appeared on the courtroom monitor. He looked tired, older than his 45 years, but his voice was steady. I was chief financial officer of Holloway Enterprises for 7 years. During that time, I witnessed and was pressured to participate in systematic financial fraud. Grant's attorneys requested a recess, denied. Derek continued. He named accounts, transaction dates, dollar amounts. He explained how Grant had siphoned money from employee pensions, how Sloan's name had been used to create offshore entities, how Margot was supposed to be the fall guy when everything collapsed. Mr. Holloway told me the divorce would provide cover, Derek said. He said his wife was simple, that she would sign whatever he put in front of her, that by the time anyone figured out the truth, she would be the one holding the bag. Grant was sweating now. His expensive suit was rumpled. His carefully constructed composure was cracking. Rebecca Marsh tried to object, tried to discredit Derek's testimony, but the numbers were too damning, the evidence too complete. Harrison's face remained neutral throughout, professional. When Derek finished, Margot stood again. Your Honor, I have one more piece of evidence to present. She handed over a document. This is confirmation that the SEC has opened a formal investigation into Holloway Enterprises based on the evidence you've just seen. The company's assets have been frozen pending the outcome of that investigation. The color drained from Grant's face. Your Honor, his voice was hoarse. I'd like to request a brief recess to discuss settlement options with my client. Denied. But Your Honor, Mr. Holloway, you have spent the past 2 hours telling this court that your wife is unstable, unsuitable, and incapable. Harrison's voice was ice. You have wasted this court's time with fabricated evidence and perjured testimony. You do not get to negotiate now that you've been caught. Grant turned to his lawyers, to the gallery full of people who had come to watch him win. I'll give her everything. His voice cracked. The house, the accounts, full custody. Just stop this. Margot stood. I don't want your money, Grant. She walked toward him, slowly, her hand resting on her belly where their daughter was growing. I want you to understand something. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You thought I was nothing because I had nothing, but I chose to have nothing with you. I wanted to see if you could love me without a name, without connections, without power. Grant's mouth opened. No sound came out. You couldn't. You didn't marry me despite thinking I was poor. You married me because of it. You wanted someone to own. Her voice carried through the silent courtroom. I was never yours to own, and our daughter never will be either. She turned and walked back to her table. Harrison picked up his gavel. This court finds in favor of the petitioner, Margot Elizabeth Ellison Whitmore. Full custody of the minor child is awarded to the mother. All visitation is denied pending criminal investigation. Grant made a strangled sound. Svolet. Furthermore, all assets currently held by Mr. Holloway are frozen and will be distributed according to law once the SEC investigation concludes. Personal assets are provisionally awarded to Mrs. Whitmore pending final determination. Harrison looked at Grant. Mr. Holloway, you came to this court believing you would leave with everything. You will leave with nothing. Not because of your wife's family connections, but because of your own actions. your greed, your cruelty, your conviction that rules do not apply to men like you. The gavel came down. This court is adjourned. Grant was escorted from the courtroom by his own lawyers. He tried to catch Margot's eye, tried to say something. She did not look at him. She was looking at the sonogram she had pulled from her folder. The image of her daughter. The baby who would grow up knowing her mother's strength. The gallery emptied. The journalists rushed out to file their stories. Grant's business associates pretended they had never known him. Judith Whitmore entered from the back of the courtroom. Conrad was behind her. Piper, the family that had been waiting. Margot hugged them all, one by one, in silence. It was over. 6 months later. The house was small. A cottage on 3 acres of land, far enough from the city that Margot could see stars at night. She had bought it with her own money, the settlement from Grant, the first money she had truly earned. Eleanor Judith Holloway was 4 months old. She had her mother's dark hair and her grandmother's stubborn chin. She was sleeping now, in the nursery Margot had painted herself. Pale yellow walls, a mobile of silver stars turning slowly in the breeze from the open window. Piper arrived at noon with Thai food and gossip. "Have you seen the news?" She set the containers on the kitchen counter. Grant pled guilty, 3 years minimum. More if they find additional fraud. "I saw. You don't seem happy." Margot poured herself a glass of water. The baby monitor crackled softly on the counter. "I'm not happy he's suffering. I'm happy I'm not." They ate on the porch, watching the autumn leaves fall. The trees were red and gold. The air smelled like wood smoke and apples. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Dinner Sunday. Your father wants to teach Eleanor chess. She is 4 months old, but he insists." Margot smiled. A week later, a letter arrived. No return address. Just a plain envelope with her name written in careful script. Inside 2 pages. "Dear Mrs. Whitmore, I should have seen what my son became. I helped create it. I gave him everything and expected nothing. I made excuses for his cruelty. I called you unsuitable when you were the only suitable thing in his life. I am sorry. I know that means nothing now. But I wanted you to know. Evelyn Holloway." There was a check inside the envelope, made out to the Holloway Enterprises Pension Recovery Fund. Evelyn's personal savings. Everything she had. Margot sat with the letter for a long time. Then she tore up the check and wrote a new one. From her own account. Double the amount. It was not about the money. It had never been about the money. It was about what they chose to rebuild. Her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost did not answer. "Mrs. Whitmore, it's Sloane Prescott." Margot sat down. "How are you?" "Better. I'm in therapy now. Working at a coffee shop in Portland. It's not glamorous, but it's honest." A pause. "I wanted to thank you for not destroying me when you had every right to. You made your own choice. I made it late, but I made it." Sloane's voice was stronger than Margot remembered. "I hope your daughter knows how lucky she is to have you." The call ended. Margot walked back to the nursery. Eleanor was awake now, cooing at the stars on her mobile. "Hey, baby girl." Margot lifted her daughter against her chest. "You're going to grow up knowing something important. You're going to know that being kind is harder than being cruel, and it matters more." Eleanor grabbed a fistful of her mother's hair. Margot laughed. Eleanor's first birthday party was chaos. The Whitmore clan had descended in force. Aunts and uncles and cousins 3 times removed. Piper was there, 6 months pregnant herself now, glowing with joy. Uncle Harrison was attempting to teach Eleanor how to hold a toy gavel. She kept putting it in her mouth. The cake had Eleanor's face on it, badly drawn by a bakery that charged too much. Margot loved it anyway. She stood at the edge of the party, watching. Her mother was arguing with her father about the proper way to cut cake. Piper was laughing at something Harrison said. Eleanor was being passed from relative to relative, collecting kisses. This was what Grant had tried to take from her. this noise, this chaos, this love. She reached into her wallet and pulled out an old business card. Faded now, soft at the corners. Judge Harrison Whitmore, Family Court Division. Her escape route, her safety net. The card she had carried for 5 years, just in case. She did not need it anymore. She tore it in half, dropped it in the trash. Margot. Her mother's voice carried across the lawn. Come cut the cake. Your daughter's trying to eat the candle. Margot walked toward the noise, toward the chaos, toward the love. Eleanor, baby, come look at the cake. It's got your face on it. She picked up her daughter, kissed her frosting sticky cheek, and for the first time in her adult life, Margot Whitmore did not look back. If this story touched your heart, or if you know someone who needs to hear it today, please share it with them. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions help us reach more people who might be going through their own difficult chapters right now. Every comment you leave tells us what kind of stories matter to you. And every subscription means you will never miss another story of strength, justice, and new beginnings. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for listening until the end. And thank you for believing that stories like this one deserve to be told. Closing statement. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to bring meaningful lessons and inspiration to our audience. Every word was chosen with purpose. Every scene was crafted with care, because we believe that stories have the power to heal, to empower, and to remind us all that we are stronger than we know. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never let anyone make you feel small.